I'm Amber from Amber's Craft Week blog, and today we're going to be working on the Harley Quinn jacket. Now my plan for the jacket is a little bit different from the comic book image. What I want to do is use the same color scheme that I did for the top and for the shorts. So I'm going to have one half of the jacket red sequins, the other half of the jacket blue sequins. To make this jacket, I am using the Avelia Bomber Jacket pattern, which you can get for free online from Mood Fabrics. I will link to that below. Now I already went ahead and printed the pattern pieces. So we have here the back of the jacket, the front of the jacket, and the jacket sleeve. And these are going to be the main pieces. There are several other pieces of the template also, but you use those to cut out the rib knit fabric that goes around the neckline, the waistband, and along the sleeves, sleeve cuffs. And I do not have the rib knit fabric in yet. In fact, I don't know if I'm going to get it in time. Originally I wasn't planning on making a jacket, but I thought the costume needed something a little more, and so I was like, the jacket would be a great option. And so I had sequin fabric that I could use, and I assumed that rib knit trim, like it's on so many things, I assumed it would be easy to find, but apparently it's kind of hard to find. There's a company in the UK that makes a lot of this rib knit fabric, and I ordered it from them, but the estimated delivery window is anytime like between mid-August and mid-September, so we'll see when it gets here. So I don't have that yet. I also don't have the zipper yet, but that's supposed to come in tomorrow, so that's that. Now the pattern calls for making a lining, and currently I'm planning on not making a lining for this if possible. The only fabric that I currently have that I could use for a lining for this is a sheet set that I bought for a Red Riding Hood cape. I don't want to touch that if I don't have to, because I think I'm already going to be pushing it with the amount of fabric there is. Like, not sure if that'll even be enough for the cape, but we'll see. So I don't want to break into that. So I'm just going to try making the outer layer. And since this is going to be kind of a costume jacket, I don't think it will matter if it's not lined. I've also gone ahead and cut out the main pieces from our sequin fabric, so I'll show you those. So we have here, this is the sleeve piece. This is the front or the back. I think this is the front. Yeah, and then this one would be the back. It has the less steep curve right here. So we have these pieces in red sequin fabric, and then we have the exact same three pieces in this blue sequin fabric as well. So we're going to start the construction process, and hopefully I'll get all the materials in time to finish this up, but we will see how that goes. Now we're going to be mostly following the directions from the pattern, but I'll be making some modifications as we go along. The pattern originally called for it was over 2 yards of fabric. I forget how much it was exactly. Now I had 1 yard of the red fabric and 1 yard of the blue fabric, which is right about 2 yards. And even though I'd used them, I figured since I was making the smallest size of the jacket, I'd probably be okay. And it turned out I was. So I only needed 2 yards of fabric, not even. I still have a ton left over. I also didn't worry about the grain line though. So the front and back are cut on different sequin lines. I use the sequins as like the grain line. The back pieces you'll see have these horizontal sequin stripes. The front pieces, on the other hand, have vertical sequin stripes, and the sleeves do as well. So I wasn't concerned about grain line, so I could use a little less fabric, but if you are worried about the grain line, then you may need a little bit more. The first step that the pattern calls for is to sew the two back pieces together along the center back seam. So that's what we're going to start out doing. I figured I'd just explain it to you. I didn't have to pin it for you or anything, so we're just going to fold these right sides together and sew along this seam. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll be back. Alright, so I am back, and I have sewn the center back somewhat successfully together. Somehow, even though these two pieces were lined up at the beginning, they get a little unaligned, but I'm hoping that will be fixable. They're only slightly unaligned, and I think, you know, when we sew on the neckband and stuff, that'll probably hide it. I am a little bit worried about the shoulders being at slightly different heights, but again, I think it's small enough difference that it won't make a difference in the end. So that's that. The next step is to sew the front to the back along the sides. So for that, I've gone ahead and I've pinned the front pieces to the back pieces along the sides. And we're doing this right sides together, which in the context of this project means sequin sides together. So I'm probably going to use the terminology sequin sides together, because if you're not familiar with the idea of right sides and wrong sides, it's going to be a little easier just to be like sequin sides facing in. So did that on that side, and I did the same thing on this side. So the front's pinned to the back, and we're just going to sew along those safety pin lines. I also went ahead and pinned one of the sleeves. I didn't see a step for this in the pattern, but there's like one place, so you have 3 steps working with sewing the front to the back and all that sort of stuff. And then there's 3 steps dealing with the sleeves, and just all of a sudden there's a picture of the sleeve all put together, and so I figure it has to happen at some point in time. So I just went ahead and pinned one of the sleeves, and we're going to sew along that line as well. So not sure if I'm going to do this before or after I show you the sides sewn together, but at some point in time you'll see the sleeve. Alright, so I have front and back sewn together on this side and also on this side, and could have gone a bit better. I think the problem is I am accidentally stretching the bottom fabric while sewing somehow, because it is a stretchy fabric. So these will start out lined up, they're the same size, there's nothing wrong with the pattern, but somehow by the time I get down to the end of where I'm sewing, there's one fabric is longer than the other. Luckily this bomber jacket isn't supposed to be super fitted, so hopefully that won't make a difference in the end, but it is a little concerning. Now the next step, I haven't gotten to the sleeves yet, I'll get to those in just a moment. So the next step is going to be to pin along the shoulder seams and sew those together. So I'm going to pin the 2 blue shoulder seams together and sew those. We're going to do the same thing with the red one. We're also going to sew the sleeves, and then I'll be back. So I think I finally figured out what the issue is that's going on. And what's happening is the presser foot on my sewing machine is stretching the top fabric. I'm not sure how or why that's happening, or why it didn't happen when I was sewing the shorts, but it seems like anytime I sew things, no matter how well lined up they are, the top piece ends up getting stretched. So let's go to, so I sewed the shoulder seams together, and you can see they start out lining up at the bottom, but then at the top there's this extra bit here that got stretched. The same thing happened on the red side. Now I also sewed one of the sleeves together, so just sewed down the seam right here. Kind of hard to see because I went ahead and decided to try pinning it onto the jacket to see how that looks, and if I am actually able to sew this on correctly without issue, it will be a miracle. So I'm going to sew the other sleeve, and then I'm going to try sewing both sleeves onto the jacket. Wish me luck. Okay, quick update. We have a sleeve. I also forgot to mention the sleeve step. I think I forgot to mention this. So for the sleeve step, you were supposed to use basting stitches first. I don't know what exactly basting stitches are. I could figure it out if I Googled it, but it seemed like extra work, so that's why I just went ahead and pinned it. So if you're following along at home, you may want to go ahead and do that step first. But I got the sleeve on. Is it a great sleeve? No. But it is a sleeve, and it is on this garment, and it looks like a sleeve. Now the stitching inside is rather horrendous. I will of course show you, because nothing lined up. It was really hard to sew because I have I'll show you this area in particular. So this overlaps here, it gets cut off here. I don't know, everything didn't line up very well at all. So it was really a pain to sew it on. I don't know again how you're seeing this on the camera, but because nothing lined up, it was quite a chore. But I got it, and now I have one sleeve. So fingers crossed we can get the other sleeve. I still haven't finished pinning that one. I have to sew down that one seam, but then we can pin it on and sew it on, and hopefully it turns out at least as well as this sleeve, because it is a functional sleeve, and that's about all I can ask for. Also, before we get to sewing the other sleeve onto the jacket, I just wanted to real quick show you what the sleeve looks like, because the last time I already had it pinned and everything, so you couldn't really see what I'd done for sewing it. But this is what the sleeve looks like. All I did was sew along that seam down the side. And we're going to flip this right side out like this, because when you go to pin it, you want to slide it inside the jacket. So I'll try and demonstrate it, because pinning sleeves is a little bit tricky. But basically we need the sequin sides facing each other. So we find our armhole, and I'm going to back up so hopefully you see this. We slide the sleeve in through. So this way the sequin sides will be touching, and then we just pin along that. I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll be back. And here we have it. So far so good. It has 2 sleeves, and it's holding up. So once I get in the trim and the zipper, we'll do some more work. But until then, this is what I've got. It actually looks like a jacket. It fits fine. It's big, of course, but it's a bomber jacket, so it's kind of supposed to be big. This was a size 0 to 2, so which was the smallest size they had. And yeah, just figured I'd show you what it looks like with both sleeves on. Can't wait to get this whole thing together. I'm hoping it looks fantastic and works well with my costume. So it has sleeves. I sewed sleeves for the first time ever, and it was rough going, but they're on. So hey everyone, I'm back, and I ended up completing the jacket. So apologies for not taking more footage of this process. I just was not in a mood for filming yesterday, but I wanted to finish this up. I had a lot of what I call risky sewing that I did, and I wasn't sure how it was going to turn out. And when I'm not feeling very confident in my project, I tend not to want to film it, because I tend to get really frustrated if things don't go right. So I'm going to talk you through what I did a little bit. I mostly followed, or I kind of followed the pattern, so you can get through the rest of the jacket following the pattern instructions relatively well. There was one pretty major modification I made though, so I'll tell you about that one. We're going to start with the waist trim. For the waist trim, the jacket has this piece right here. You're supposed to cut out 4 of these and then sew them all together in one long strip. Now, instead of cutting out 4 of these, I was like, well, I'll just cut out 2 on the fold. You know, so like fold my fabric in half, lay this down, trace it, and then cut it out with my rotary cutting tool. I cut out one of them and unfolded it, and it looked big, like big enough to go around my hips. And I tested it out, and that worked, and I was like, well, I don't think I need another one of these, because if you lay this down over the fold, like, you get double the length. So I had like, there goes my jacket. So I had like, you know, a strip like this. And so I folded it around my hips, and lo and behold, it was big enough. So I only used one of these cut on the fold instead of 4 cut individually and sewn together. And as you can see, that seemed to work out relatively well. So I sewed it to the bottom, and that went much more smoothly than I was expecting, because the rib knit trim has a lot of stretch to it. So sewing this stretchy fabric on the stretchy sequin fabric turned out to work out pretty smoothly. And so after I did that, I thought I had to hem this before I installed the zipper. Turns out you don't. That was in a much later step, but like I kind of like was expecting to do that before the zipper. The reason why you don't want to do that until after you've installed the zipper is you can kind of cover up this bottom bit with the fabric, but I didn't realize that. I've never installed, I hand installed the zipper once, really terribly. If you've seen my craft vlog post where I show you my old sewing projects, you've already seen it, but if not, I'll link to that below. It's worth reading just for a good laugh. So that's my only experience with zipper sewing to date. I went ahead and put in this zipper. Now, at first, so I tried putting the zipper into my sewing machine, and it doesn't fit. And if you're a long-time sewer, you're probably laughing at me. But remember, I'm relatively new to this. So I was like, oh, this doesn't fit in my machine. I have to hand sew this. You'd think that a zipper would fit. They're a fairly standard thing. So I get out my needle and thread and I'm about to start hand sewing and I was like, wait, I bet there is a zipper foot for my sewing machine. And lo and behold, I Google what is a zipper foot and I find a little piece that looks like a zipper foot. And so I had to change out the foot on my sewing machine. That was the first time I've done that. And that went relatively smoothly. And the zipper sewing process, once I had the zipper foot on, went a lot more smoothly than I was expecting. So I installed the zipper, one half of it. I went to install the other half. The bobbin had run out of thread and I didn't realize it, so I ended up sewing almost all the way up before I realized nothing was sewn down. So I had to rethread the bobbin, which I've never rethreaded the bobbin before, so I got to experience rethreading the bobbin and then, you know, rethreading the needle and everything. And so that was that. And then I went on to the collar, and I followed their directions mostly for the collar as best as I could. The directions are a little bit vague in places, so I think it's kind of designed for more experienced sewers who have an idea of what they're doing. But I did not have an idea what I was doing, so we got a collar, it's on. And again, with the collar, I pretty much just followed their instructions as best as I could. I didn't do anything specific for this. And so all I had left were the cuffs. Now, I could not figure out, for the life of me, what they were doing with the cuffs. They had like this picture, and they had the lining too, and I don't have a lining fabric, so I was trying to simplify things for myself, and in a lot of ways I think it did simplify things, but I couldn't figure out from their picture how they were pinning things together. So I tried this really convoluted pinning method and sewing method, and it came out completely wrong, so I had to like cut off the cuff. Luckily I had a lot of extra rib knit trim left over, or else I would have been in bad shape, but I had enough, so I recut another cuff and sewed it on. That time I looked up a tutorial because there are lots of tutorials online about sewing on rib knit cuffs, and I will link to one below in case you don't know how to do that, because apparently I have a loose thread here I have to cut. But I will be sure to link to one of those tutorials for you because it made it really easy for me. I also found that the fabric happened to stretch enough that I was able to slide it over the little inserty bit in my sewing machine. So the sewing machine I have, if you take off the bottom part of it, this isn't going to make a ton of sense without seeing the sewing machine, but if you take off the bottom of it, you can kind of slide the cuff over. It's not really meant for cuffs, it's more meant for like necklines and stuff, I imagine, but you can slide it over, and so that made it easier to sew on. But that was a little bit of a pain. That was the last thing I had to do with the cuffs. So eventually I sewed those down, and then I sewed the fabric on, and then I kind of folded it under or over and then sewed around the cuff. This is our finished jacket here. It didn't come out perfectly. There definitely are a lot of areas where it could have been improved, but it is a functional jacket, and I don't think it looks too bad given that this was my first attempt sewing a jacket. So I'll just throw it on. And you can see, if I move my hair, it has a pretty reasonable fit. So it's a bomber jacket. It's meant to be kind of loosely fitted, and I think it has that fitted but loosely fitted fit to it. The zipper works. Oops, let's not zip my hair up. So it has a functional zipper. The one other thing I did do was I wasn't sure how to trim a zipper, so I just cut off the top bit, which apparently isn't how you're supposed to do it. So if I were to zip this all the way up, then the zipper could come off. But I'm not going to be zipping it all the way up. Like for this costume, I'm mostly going to have it unzipped or maybe half zipped. So, but I think it worked out pretty well. I am really happy with this, especially given all the sewing risks I took with this. I kind of did not expect it to turn out as well as it did. So I have a few loose threads to tie off and cut apparently that I lost track of, but otherwise this is finished, and my costume is now finished except for hair and makeup. I also made a bat for the costume. Now that one is only in blog post form because it was just acrylic painting, so I didn't think you needed a full video tutorial on that. So I will link to that post below if you haven't seen it yet, but that's the only other piece of my costume I've done so far. So we have shorts, the top, the bat, and now the jacket. All that's left is hair and makeup. I'm hoping to do a video tutorial for you on that in a couple of weeks. So stay tuned, and hopefully this costume comes out really well. That's what I'm hoping for. Fingers crossed. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, I'd love it if you gave it a like or let me know in the comments. What are you thinking about being for Halloween? I love Halloween so much. I'd love to hear about your costumes, your Halloween plans, so anything like that, feel free to share in the comments. And are there any costumes you want to see me try? I am thinking about potentially doing a video of like different costumes from my closet. I am cutting back a lot of the videos I'm doing on this channel though. It was becoming a bit overwhelming trying to do videos for this channel with everything else I have to do. So I'm probably going to be doing about 2 a month instead of 8 a month. It's going to be quite a scaling back. And it's unfortunate that it's coming right now because Halloween season is my favorite. But I'm going to try and have some really good quality Halloween videos for you. So I'm hoping to do a Halloween home tour. And probably, and potentially also like a Halloween costumes one, like costumes from my closet, or just trying on different Halloween costumes that I've made, something like that. So if you want to see any of that kind of content, let me know. I really want to produce videos that you want to see, but that I also enjoy. So let me know what you want to see and we'll see what we can do. Thanks for watching and have a great day.